Alice, freshly famous yet spiritually seasick, checks into an isolated seaside cottage to recover from a breakdown the tabloids find more interesting than her novels. She feels like a character in her own fiction, hovering, disembodied, waiting for the author to decide her next move. The waves outside chant an ancient chorus. Success is a tide that both lifts and erodes. Emails to her best friend Eileen become lifelines strung across continents. Even the goals seem to ask the book's title question, wheeling against a sky too blue to be reassuring. Meanwhile in Dublin, Eileen earns modest wages editing literary trivia no one reads, yet she polishes each entry like a gem. She rents a tiny room filled with more questions than furniture, nursing a crush on Simon that dates back to their school days. Eileen's private rebellion is intellectual. She annotates life itself with footnotes of yearning. Her inbox pings with Alice's digital SOS, and she answers in prose worthy of a confessional. Across their screens, friendship glows like a filament keeping both bulbs from burning out. On a dating app, Alice swipes right on Felix, a warehouse worker whose wry profile suggests he takes nothing seriously, not even the algorithm. Their first meeting at a dingy bar plays like a mismatched sitcom pilot, famous author versus man who misplaces his keys twice in one conversation. Yet beneath Felix's sarcasm, Alice hears honesty sharp enough to slice the air. Class tension snaps like static whenever they brush metaphorical shoulders. The evening ends with neither romance nor disaster, only potential coiled like a spring. Back in Dublin, Simon, policy advisor by day, Catholic altruist by upbringing, drops by Eileen's flat with groceries she forgot to buy. Their banter dances on a fault line between platonic ritual and suppressed desire. Eileen's heart drums a syncopated beat whenever he flicks his fringe aside. Simon, older by a handful of wistful years, senses the music but hesitates to join the dance. In this slow burn, restraint is as charged as touch. Email volleys resume. Alice dissects celebrity like a frog in biology class, labeling each slippery organ of public attention. She confesses to Eileen that acclaim feels counterfeit beside the quiet honesty of the Irish Sea. Eileen replies with reflections on beauty, how it blooms in ordinary minutes and dies in headlines. Their correspondence becomes an epistolary duet interrogating art, faith, and apocalypse memes. Against cautious instinct, Alice invites Felix to her cottage for an overnight stay that begins with an awkward supermarket expedition. He teases her for choosing artisanal olives. She ribs him for pretending to hate them. Among tins and trolley wheels they achieve a comic equilibrium, discovering romance in the freezer aisle. Felix's delight in simple food punctures Alice's literary melancholy like sunshine through cloud. Shopping carts, it turns out, can double as Trojan horses for intimacy. Eileen, stung by Simon's saintly composure, experiments with jealousy by flirting at a colleague's party. Yet every witty aside feels counterfeit when compared with the gentle gravity Simon exudes. She watches him nurse a single beer all night, generosity in his posture, and realizes her sabotage ricochets inward. The party lights spin, but her focus stays fixed on one unmoving star. Desire, like physics, obeys its own conservation laws. Alice jets Felix to Rome for a literary festival, upgrading their situationship to long-haul status. Felix, fish out of warehouse water, navigates canapé trays with wry bravado. He calls the publishing elite a fancy penguinsy in his head, but lets Alice shine uninterrupted. Watching her command a panel, Felix glimpses the tectonic plates of intellect beneath her calm surface. Rome's ancient stones echo with the absurdity of new love. Post-festival, their hotel room hums with friction both cultural and corporeal. An argument about class privilege combusts into fierce attraction. Politics, apparently, is foreplay. Alice's vulnerability surfaces like a message in a bottle only Felix can read. They fall asleep tangled but uneasy, alarm clocks of difference still ticking. Love here is a Venn diagram with a perilously thin overlap. Eileen, emboldened by wine and frustration, confronts Simon about his saintly detachment. She accuses him of hiding behind virtue as if it were armor polished daily. Simon, startled, admits he's loved her for years but feared the feeling might devour their friendship. The confession detonates silently between them like a fireworks seen from miles away, bright, delayed, inevitable. At last, their shared history becomes future tense. Felix brings Alice home to meet his family in County Mayo, trading cosmopolitan Rome for peeling wallpaper and wet fields. His mother sizes Alice up with an eyebrow that could redirect river flow. Over tea, class distinctions pile up like unread magazines, yet laughter slips through the gaps. Alice's shyness charms Felix's sister, who later tells him, as she looks at you like you're a novel worth finishing. Home turf becomes a microscope revealing what gloss once concealed. In Dublin, Eileen and Simon finally allow years of tension to dissolve in a bedroom scene rendered with Rooney's trademark forensic tenderness. They speak theology and childhood while undressing, translating affection into theology of skin. Their union feels both radical and ordinary, as if they've merely resumed an unfinished sentence. Afterwards, Simon holds her like a relic, precious yet living. The sacred and the secular stop pretending they were ever separate. Alice's mental health falters again under the dual weight of public scrutiny and private doubt. She confines herself to her cottage, skipping meals while doom-scrolling headlines about climate collapse. Felix, unsure how to help, delivers groceries and blunt affection at the door. Their conversations become staccato notes of care and irritation, a Morse code of fragility. The sea outside mirrors her mood, storm-tossed yet unwilling to quit the shore. Eileen, too, confronts despair when her magazine reduces staff. Beauty, apparently, does not balance spreadsheets. She weeps in the bathroom stall, mascara mapping tributaries of anxiety. Later she writes Alice an email comparing capitalism to an incompetent puppeteer jerking civilization strings. The friend's missives blur genres, part sermon, part therapy, part stand-up routine, proving language is elastic enough to hold them both. Grief and wit form a double helix in their correspondence. Alice and Felix, weary of stalemate, drive inland for an impromptu holiday where phone signal is mythic. They hike through fields the color of forgiveness, arguing only about which cloud resembles a rabbit. That night by a peat fire, they articulate love shabby and substantial, like a sofa no stylist would photograph but everyone wants to sit on. Felix admits he Googled her interviews and felt proud, not threatened. Reconciliation arrives wearing muddy boots. Eileen and Simon negotiate logistics of loving while Catholic, timing, family expectations, the spectre of eternal vows. They discover compatibility in spreadsheets and scripture, sharing a Google Doc titled A Beautiful Plan. Simon's kindness, once defensive armor, now becomes a doorway. Eileen steps through, armed with sarcasm and hope. Commitment here feels less like a cage and more like a greenhouse. The quartet converges in Dublin for Alice's birthday, an awkward choreography of new couples and old friendships. Over tappers, they debate whether civilization deserves to be saved, spoons clinking like tiny gavels. Felix surprises everyone by quoting Marcus Aurelius, revealing a hidden bookshelf in his mind. Laughter stitches the evening together, leaving seams visible but strong. Community, fragile as glass, proves nonetheless refillable. Months later, Eileen discovers she is pregnant. Her first emotion is Tara's quieter cousin, astonishment. Simon, hearing the news, offers unwavering joy that feels almost reckless. They imagine a child born into an era of viral crises and melting ice, yet still cradle the thought like a seed. The future, they agree, is both emergency and miracle. Life insists on itself, even in a damaged garden. The COVID-19 pandemic crashes in like a plot twist no editor would allow. Too on the nose, too global. Lockdown separates the pairs physically but threads them tighter via screens and mailed packages. They trade recipes, memes, and fears. Discovering intimacy can travel bandwidths. Alice writes a novel inside quarantine, while Felix fosters abandoned kittens. The apocalypse, it turns out, also needs litter boxes cleaned. At last, Alice sends Eileen an email that reads like a hymn. The world is beautiful, even when we can't touch it. Eileen replies, a beauty is not a luxury item, it's the last common resource. Their words close the circuit of the novel, friendship as renewable energy. Beyond screens, waves still crash, babies will cry, olives will be eaten. And somewhere in that ordinary din, the answer to the title's question hums. It's here, inside the floored, glowing present. Subscribe for more book summaries and let us know in the comments which book you'd like to see next.